Spring, in my experience, has always contained some joy as the sun warms the earth and some messiness as the rains come or the snows melt. Whether I was living in New York or Oregon or Portugal, nature has reminded me that joy and woe are woven fine. Nature has been my teacher. During World War I, T.H. White, an English author and naturalist living in Ireland, recognized that war is one of the worst creations of humanity. He wrote The Once and Future King, the story of King Arthur. In the books, the wizard named Merlin teaches Arthur about using strength and wisdom in service to peace. Merlin stresses to Arthur that by learning to pay attention to the natural world, we can learn how to live joyful, compassionate lives. Merlin and the earth-based traditions advise us to look to nature and the behavior of the wild creatures for insights into our own nature, how we can become our best selves. We are creatures of the land that we live on. During the short days of winter, our rational minds know that the sun will return, but there is something deeper that despairs, yearns, and suffers in the dark. The natural cycles live deep within us. The depictions of the goddess Estra or Ostara are like the European paintings of Maiden Spring. She's a joyous woman with flowers in her hair, carrying a basket of eggs and a bunny rabbit. Many pagans use the word Ostara for the celebration of the spring equinox. After the risks, cold, and privation of winter, it's no surprise to find that in spring, the Easter bunny brings baskets full of eggs for children. In fact, the theme of crossing a threshold and welcoming life is celebrated with the Christian resurrection story, and in the Jewish faith, the celebratory Passover supper. Passover, the celebration of the gift of life and escape from privation and death. This is the season to celebrate the victory of life over death. Every spiritual path needs that reminder. All over the world, people are celebrating the transformation into spring. Nowruz is an ancient Persian and modern Baha'i festival which occurs on March 21st. It's celebrated with many symbols indicating regrowth and renewal. The purpose is to celebrate the messages that spiritual teachers such as Muhammad and Jesus proclaim, messages which bring us spiritual springtime. Some celebrations of Nowruz include floating new sprouts of plants down a stream and doing a spring cleaning. I hear that same message from those who look up beyond our Earth as well, astronomers like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan says, "The world is so exquisite with so much love and moral depth that there's no reason to deceive ourselves with pretty stories for which there's little good evidence. Far better, it seems to me, in our vulnerability, is to look death in the eye and to be grateful every day for the brief but magnificent opportunity that life provides. It seems to me what is called for is an exquisite balance between two conflicting needs, the most skeptical scrutiny of all hypotheses that are served up to us, and at the same time, a great openness to new ideas. Beauty and love on the one hand, death on the other, skepticism on one side, openness on the other, an exquisite balance." Translated literally, equinox means equal night. It's an astronomical term, equal day and equal night, both and. We can't have one without the other. I imagine my grandparents on their farm, checking the root cellar and seeing that the jars and boxes of precious food are depleted and worrying. Checking the seeds stored and waiting, ready to plant to grow more food. The end and the beginning, both together, those seeds came from the death of the plants. Life can only return after the descent into death. Life and death, these opposites are both present at this time of year. both, and. If we practice this embrace of both and, perhaps things that seem to be irreconcilable could coexist with one another. We could appreciate the value each side brings. Western and Eastern healing modalities, Muslim and Christian spiritual heritages, Palestinian and Israeli cultural heritages, night and day, joy and sorrow, death and birth, both and. Each holds precious gifts. We can start with acknowledging the gifts of both, and then who knows what might happen. Our world misses out when we have tunnel vision. That only works when all things of value are perfectly lined up before you. Taking up both and as a spiritual practice means taking the time to pay attention to how our lives are in or out of balance. It means paying attention to what is present and what is absent. It means welcoming the fallow time and then welcoming the green growing times as well. I invite you to breathe with me. Breathe deep. Feel the polarities in this moment, earth and sun in their dance together. Feel for your own embrace of daylight and night dark within. Your own balance of old and new. This fertile dynamic of tensions, both and reach out, wrap your hands around it. Release your breath into it. Breathe in the light, swell with it. Breathe out. Let your breath go into the dark. Stay with it. Shift in your seat from left to right, forward, back. Feel your center and breathe it in. In our part of the earth, the cycle is about to tip into new growth, into the light. Feel the movement within you. See in your mind's eye the energy ahead, the light expanding. Feel the warmth of it. Breathe it in. Ah, spring, spring, a heart full of hope and a shoe full of mud. Let it be a dance. Blessed be. Amen.